Rain sliced through the night like shards of glass, each drop hammering against the asphalt in sync with the pounding of his heart. Officer Carter skidded to a stop at the edge of the alley, headlights catching the silhouette of a massive German shepherd trembling in the shadows, his fur matted, slick with rain, and one hind leg twisted at an unnatural angle. The air smelled of wet concrete and something coppery sharp, blood. Carter's hand trembled slightly as he unclipped his flashlight, the beam wobbling over the dog's desperate, wide eyes. A low whimper rolled from the dog's throat, a sound that made Carter's chest tighten, a sound that spoke of pain, fear, and trust all at once. He swallowed hard, knowing that every second counted. The world outside the alley was dark and indifferent, the distant hum of traffic a cruel reminder that life went on even as this loyal companion struggled. And yet, Carter felt the weight of responsibility settle into his bones, heavier than any rain-soaked uniform, heavier than any badge. Tonight, everything would change, or it would be too late. Carter's fingers hovered above the dog's fur, hesitating as though the slightest pressure could shatter what little remained of its composure. The sound of rain drumming against the metal fire escape above them created a fractured rhythm that matched the dog's labored panting. Every heartbeat felt amplified in the alley, each pulse a silent countdown he couldn't ignore. The world beyond the walls. Cars splashing through puddles, distant shouts, the blur of neon signs, felt impossibly distant, irrelevant, as if the universe had pressed pause to observe this fragile life. Carter's own breathing was ragged, uneven. Caught between instinct and memory, he remembered the first day he met this partner on the force, the pride he had felt when the dog had completed the obstacle course with a precision that mirrored his own devotion to duty. And now, seeing the same dog quivering, one paw twisted beneath it, he felt guilt slicing through him sharper than any physical pain. The alley smelled of wet asphalt, of cold steel, and of copper-tinged fear. Carter leaned closer, voice soft, almost a whisper, coaxing, pleading. "It's okay, I'm here." The dog flinched slightly but didn't pull away, a fragile sign that trust still flickered in the depths of its eyes. The night air pressed cold against his neck, and a gust of wind carried the tang of rain and mud into his nostrils. Carter could feel the tension radiating from the dog's body in waves, each shiver a message he instinctively translated. He spoke again, this time recounting small, mundane details: the route home, the warm bed waiting, the quiet corner of the precinct. His words were lifelines, threads meant to tether the dog's panic to something familiar, something safe. He noticed how the muscles along the injured leg twitched involuntarily, how the dog's tail lay flat, almost forgotten, against the wet concrete. A low whimper escaped, and Carter's chest constricted. He wanted to pull the dog close, to shield it from a world that had already proven merciless. Yet he restrained himself, knowing that any sudden movement could worsen the injury. Any hurried action could break the tenuous thread of trust. Time itself seemed to stretch thin, each second a droplet in the ocean of tension, each one heavier than the last. He shifted slightly, kneeling fully now, and let his palm brush lightly over the dog's shoulder, careful to avoid the wounded leg. The dog's gaze followed him, eyes wide and glistening, reflecting the staccato flash of passing headlights like fractured mirrors. Carter whispered encouragements, his own voice rough with strain. You're okay, we'll get through this." It was a mantra repeated with the rhythm of his pulse, a desperate attempt to anchor both of them in a moment of fragile stability. He could feel the slick of rain on his uniform, cold seeping through layers of fabric, but it was nothing compared to the heat of worry radiating from his chest. Every instinct screamed for him to act faster, to pick up the dog, to run, to fix the injury, to erase the fear. But he stayed, measured, watching, waiting for the subtle signs of compliance and trust. A tail twitch, a small lift of the head, a softening of the jaw. A flash of lightning illuminated the alley in harsh, brief brilliance, revealing the twisted angle of the dog's paw, the taut cords of muscle trembling beneath soaked fur. Carter swallowed hard, his throat was dry tight. Memories of training exercises, of past injuries in the field, collided with a surge of raw emotion. He had faced danger before, but never like this. Not the vulnerability of a creature who relied entirely on him, not the intimate, heart-wrenching plea in the depths of those wide, dark eyes. He leaned closer, letting the warmth of his body radiate down, hoping it would offer reassurance. The dog shifted minutely, a small tremor of acknowledgement, and Carter felt a spark of relief, tiny and fragile, like the first flicker of dawn through storm clouds. Carter reached into his coat pocket, fumbling for the makeshift bandage he carried for emergencies. The cold metal of the flashlight in his other hand felt like an anchor, grounding him against the tide of fear threatening to pull him under. He worked slowly, methodically, speaking softly as he applied the gentle pressure needed to stabilize the leg. The dog's breathing hitched at first, a mixture of protest and pain, then gradually steadied, matching the rhythm of Carter's movements. Outside the alley, traffic roared and faded, rain continued its relentless fall, and the night seemed to exhale along with them. Carter pressed a gloved hand to the dog's shoulder one final time, feeling the tremor of life beneath fur and fabric, and in that moment, he realized that trust, though fractured, had begun to mend, fragile as it was, yet stronger than any injury inflicted by the world beyond. Carter paused, letting his gaze sweep the alley one more time, searching for obstacles in the dim light, listening to the symphony of rain and distant traffic. The dog shifted slightly, its breath shallow, ears flicking toward every sound. The metallic clang of a loose trash can, the echo of hurried footsteps somewhere far off. Carter's heart hammered in tandem, each beat a countdown, each shiver of the dog a reminder that every second mattered. He leaned closer, murmuring low reassurances, the words almost a prayer. "I've got you. You're not alone. We'll get through this." The dog's head tilted, faintly, almost imperceptibly, a silent acknowledgement of trust, fragile and trembling yet present. Gently, Carter looped the leash around his gloved hand, careful not to pull or cause pain, and tested the dog's weight. It leaned against him tentatively, muscles stiff, trembling in rhythm with the rain, soaked ground beneath them. Each step he took was deliberate, a careful negotiation between speed and caution. Mud squelched under his boots, mixing with the coppery tang of blood and the bitter bite of rain. The alley seemed to narrow with each step, shadows pressing inward, the world outside a blur of neon reflections and storm-darkened buildings. Carter felt the tension coiling in his shoulders, the cold seep through his wet uniform, but he ignored it. All that mattered was the fragile life pressed against his side, the labored pulse beneath fur and fabric, and the weight of responsibility that could not be abandoned. The dog whimpered softly as they moved, a sound of fear and pain, yet beneath it was the faintest thread of trust. Carter's voice never wavered, a steady rhythm against the chaos. "It's okay. I'm right here, you're safe." Each word was a tether, a lifeline thrown across the chasm of uncertainty. Lightning split the sky again, brief and violent, illuminating the alley in stark, harsh contrast. For a heartbeat, Carter saw the full scope of the dog's injury. The unnatural bend of the hind leg, the slick of rain on matted fur, the tense, corded muscles quivering under trauma. He felt a pang in his chest, a mixture of sorrow and resolve, and whispered a vow he barely admitted even to himself. "I will not let anything happen to you." As they neared the patrol car, the rain intensified, cold water running down Carter's neck, soaking his hair and obscuring his vision in a blur of droplets. The dog's trembling increased, each step a painful negotiation, but it leaned into him more firmly, as if drawing strength from his presence. Carter bent slightly, adjusting the dog's stance, murmuring softly, his hands firm yet gentle. "Almost there, just a little further." His own legs ached, muscles straining, but he ignored the fatigue, focusing only on each careful movement, each heartbeat, each breath shared between them. The world outside, chaotic and uncaring, seemed suspended in those moments, holding its breath alongside them. Finally, reaching the edge of the alley, Carter paused to catch his own breath, chest rising and falling in wet, ragged gasps. He let the dog settle momentarily, offering a quiet moment of reassurance. The headlights of the patrol car cut through the sheets of rain, reflecting on puddles like fractured mirrors, illuminating the twisted path ahead. Carter whispered one last encouragement, brushing mud from the dog's fur, fingers lingering as if to imprint a promise onto its trembling body. "We're almost safe, we're almost there." The dog lifted its head slightly, eyes glinting with recognition and faint courage, and Carter felt the weight of the night begin to shift. Not fully lifted, but shared, halved between them. In the storm-soaked silence, he understood that trust, though wounded, had survived, and that together they would face whatever came next. Carter straightened, bracing himself as he guided the dog toward the car, muscles taut with tension, senses sharpened against every sound, movement, and obstacle. The dog's paws left faint imprints in the puddles, each step a testament to resilience, each whimper a reminder of fragility. Carter's mind raced, calculating the route, envisioning every puddle, every uneven surface, every obstacle that might jar or injure further. Yet in this torrent of thought, there was also a steady current of calm, a bond forged in fear, pain, and instinctual devotion. He whispered again, not as instruction, but as affirmation. "You're going to be okay, I promise." The dog leaned closer, faintly pressing its head against his arm, and in that small, fragile gesture, Carter felt a surge of hope that even in the fractured night, even in the cold and wet and danger, trust could be reborn. Carter eased the dog into the back seat of the patrol car, careful to avoid the injured leg, and felt the tension radiating through the animal's body like electricity. The rain pelted the roof in relentless staccato, a chaotic percussion that seemed to echo the thrum of Carter's own racing pulse. He pressed a gloved hand to the dog's shoulder, feeling the heat beneath soaked fur, the subtle tremors that belayed both pain and trust. The interior smelled of wet leather, rain-soaked fabric, and faint traces of the dog's own fear-scented musk. Carter leaned close, murmuring softly, his voice hoarse but steady, "I've got you, you're safe now. We'll get help." The dog's eyes, wide and glossy, flickered between caution and tentative recognition, and a small shiver ran down its spine as if it were testing the promise. He unfastened the leash and adjusted the dog so that it lay semi-reclined, keeping the injured leg supported on his jacket. Each movement was measured, a negotiation between instinct and patience. Carter could feel his own muscles trembling from the strain of holding the dog upright, from the adrenaline that refused to ebb despite hours of tension. The car smelled faintly of antiseptic from his first aid kit, mingled with rain and the metallic tang of blood, a reminder of how precarious this moment was. He pressed his forehead against the dog's head, letting warmth radiate between them, whispering apologies, reassurances, promises he didn't know if he could keep. "You don't have to fight alone. I'm here." The dog let out a soft whine, leaning slightly into the touch, a delicate thread of trust forming in the quiet storm of fear. The windshield wipers slashed rhythmically against the rain, but inside the car, time seemed suspended. Carter's own thoughts raced as he studied the dog's breathing, counting each shallow rise and fall of its chest. Every subtle flick of the ears, every twitch of the tail, every hesitant lift of the head became a language of vulnerability and courage he had to interpret. His hands moved to stabilize the leg with a makeshift splint, wrapping gently yet firmly, feeling the pulse of life beneath fragile bone and fur. The dog flinched at first, a sharp cry cutting through the car, and Carter froze, heart tightening, breath catching. Slowly, the tremor faded, replaced by a tentative stillness that mirrored his own cautious optimism. Outside, the storm intensified, wind rattling the car, rain cascading in torrents, the city lights smeared into streaks of orange and white. Yet inside, there was a fragile bubble of calm, a fragile ecosystem of care and trust. Carter talked quietly, recounting trivialities, past patrols, the mundane rhythm of everyday life, using familiarity as a bridge across the chasm of fear. "Remember the training yard. You were unstoppable. Remember the treats after drills. We'll have those again soon." His words were both soothing and grounding, offering a tether to normalcy, a lifeline against the rawness of pain and vulnerability. The dog's body relaxed fractionally, head resting heavier against Carter's arm, breathing slow and steadying, yet the shadows of fear lingered in its eyes. Carter's mind was a swirl of urgency and introspection. He remembered the dog's first day on the force, the fierce, unyielding energy that had inspired him then. Now, seeing the same creature laid low, shivering and trembling with pain, he confronted an unfamiliar vulnerability in himself. Fear not just for the dog's life, but for the trust and bond that hung in the balance. Each raindrop tapping the roof, Each distant car passing through waterlogged streets became a metronome of reflection. Responsibility, compassion, courage. Carter's hands never left the dog's fur, tracing patterns, offering warmth, grounding both of them against the storm outside and the storm within. Minutes passed, or hours. The passage of time became irrelevant in the sanctuary of shared vulnerability. The dog lifted its head slightly, ears flicking toward the sound of Carter's voice, tail giving a small, hesitant wag against the jacket. Carter felt a rush of relief, fragile and ephemeral, and whispered, almost in disbelief, "You're okay, you're going to make it." He knew the road ahead would be treacherous. The vet's unit was several miles away, the streets slick with rain and hazards, but in this moment, courage had taken root in both of them. Carter braced his arms, holding the dog firmly yet gently as the engine hummed to life, the car inching forward into the storm, each movement a careful dance of trust and determination. The outside world pressed in through rain, streaked windows, chaotic and unforgiving, yet Carter found solace in the rhythmic motion of the car, the heat from the engine, and the faint pulse of life beneath his hands. He whispered stories, small recollections of victories and camaraderie, hoping to distract from pain, to bridge fear with familiarity. Every tremor, every sigh, every soft whine from the dog became a dialogue of resilience, an exchange of courage between human and animal. Carter's own pulse sensed with the fragile rhythm of trust, every second a testament to quiet heroism. As the first dim light of dawn touched the horizon, filtered through the storm clouds, Carter felt a subtle shift. The dog's breathing was steadier, the tremors less frantic, the eyes less haunted. Tender courage, he realized, was not a grand, singular act but a series of small, deliberate choices to stay, to hold, to whisper, to stabilize, to trust in the fragile bond that had begun to form in the darkness of rain and fear. He glanced down at the dog, feeling the warmth beneath fur and fabric, and in that quiet, intimate space he understood that their survival, though uncertain, had begun. The storm outside might rage, but inside, courage had found a foothold, fragile yet unyielding, and it would carry them forward through the darkness toward whatever hope remained on the horizon. The patrol car cut through sheets of rain, wipers struggling to keep pace with the downpour, windshield streaked and blurred as though the world itself had been washed away. Carter's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white beneath soaked gloves, while the dog lay across the back seat, trembling with every jolt of the car over slick, uneven streets. Each bump and puddle was a test of trust, every slide of tires on water, slick asphalt a pulse of terror mirrored in the dog's tense muscles. Carter kept speaking softly, narrating their progress, his voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. "Almost there, just a little further, I've got you." The dog's ears twitched with each word, and for brief moments, it lifted its head, eyes locking on his as if drawing courage from his determination. The storm seemed to grow more relentless with each mile, wind battering the car, rain pounding the roof and hood like a percussion of impending urgency. Streetlights were smeared into halos, neon signs wobbled in watery reflections, and the distant roar of traffic became a haunting, fractured rhythm. Carter's heart beat in tandem with the windshield wipers, each sweep a reminder of the fragility beneath him. Every shift of the dog's body, every hitch of its breath, became a message he deciphered with practiced instinct pain, fear, resilience. He adjusted the splint gently, checking the alignment, murmuring encouragements, keeping the tone steady even as adrenaline surged and exhaustion clawed at his limbs. Mud and water splashed onto the sides of the car, and Carter's boots were slick as he had briefly stepped out earlier to check straps and secure the dog for the ride. The memory of that moment pressed against his chest now. A flash of vulnerability, a confrontation with helplessness he couldn't allow to linger. He focused instead on the here and now, the dog's pulse, the shallow rise and fall of its chest, the warmth pressed against his palms. He felt a flicker of hope with each careful breath they shared, yet the tension never fully eased. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil inside, relentless and unyielding. A sudden puddle sent the car lurching sideways, and the dog yelped, flinching into Carter's arm. He swore softly under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter, adjusting his hold on the dog with meticulous care. The whine that escaped its throat was not just pain, It was fear, mistrust, and dependence all coiled into a fragile, vocalized plea. Carter pressed his forehead momentarily against the headrest, closing his eyes, drawing a slow, grounding breath before resuming gentle reassurances. "I'm right here. It's okay, you're safe." The dog's trembling lessened fractionally, leaning into his presence as if drawing strength from the certainty in his voice. Each mile was a negotiation between urgency and care, every second a delicate balance between haste and caution. The streets became narrower, water rising along gutters, reflecting neon lights in a kaleidoscope of distorted color. Carter's mind raced. Alternate routes, potential hazards, potholes submerged beneath murky water. But the car moved steadily, guided by determination and instinct. Occasionally, the dog twitched violently, paw spasming or head jerking, and Carter's chest constricted in response, fear ricocheting through him. Yet every time he whispered comfort, stroked wet fur, or adjusted a paw, a tiny wave of calm returned, a testament to the fragile trust rebuilding between them. He realized, in these small moments, that courage was reciprocal, the dog's vulnerability demanding his own patience, presence, and unwavering resolve. The rhythmic pounding of the rain became almost hypnotic, a steady percussion that merged with the dog's whimpers, his own shallow breaths, and the low hum of the engine. Carter's eyes swept constantly between the road and rearview mirror, reading subtle shifts, the flattening of ears, the tentative lift of a head, a tail flick against his arm. Each tiny signal was a victory, each small adjustment a step toward survival. The world outside remained chaotic and indifferent. Streets slick and treacherous, yet in the enclosed bubble of car and care, the storm began to recede, not outside but within as trust and courage took root. Suddenly, a downed tree branch loomed ahead, half submerged in water, forcing a swerve that sent the car sliding precariously. Carter's heart slammed in his chest, hands gripping the wheel, voice rising in a brief, tense exclamation, "Hold on, stay with me!" The dog yelped, body pressing closer, and Carter felt the raw weight of responsibility more sharply than ever. Every instinct screamed to move faster, yet he tempered urgency with caution, aware that one misstep could shatter the fragile equilibrium. The car regained stability, tires splashing into deeper puddles. Headlights cutting through the water, soaked darkness, illuminating a fleeting path forward. Carter exhaled slowly, running a hand down the dog's side, whispering assurances as if each word could patch broken trust. As the veterinary unit came into view, a faint glow through the rain and night, Carter felt the tension ease slightly, though his pulse remained high, adrenaline still coiled like a spring. The dog stirred, head lifting slightly, ears flicking toward the approaching building, and Carter allowed himself a brief, careful smile. The journey was not yet over. The dog's injury still demanded care, the storm outside still raged, but a fragile victory had been achieved. Together they had navigated chaos, danger, and fear, building a bond forged in sweat, rain, and quiet determination. Carter whispered softly, almost to himself, "We're almost there, almost safe, hold on, buddy." The dog's soft whine, no longer frantic but tinged with recognition and trust, was the answer, a testament to courage found in the quiet, relentless struggle of the edge of night. The sterile smell of antiseptic hit Carter the moment the car doors swung open, sharp and clinical, a stark contrast to the damp, chaotic world they'd left behind. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, casting harsh white shadows across the tile floor, bouncing off metal tables and glass vials in a way that made every movement feel amplified. The dog whined softly, a fragile, trembling sound that cut through Carter's chest like a knife, and he bent immediately, cradling its head in his hands. Its eyes, dark and wide, flickered with pain and confusion, searching his face for reassurance. Carter whispered promises, his voice thick with unshaded emotion. "You're safe. We're almost there. Just a little longer." The dog flinched slightly at the antiseptic, at the sudden brightness, at the unfamiliarity, but its trust clung to him, fragile but unbroken. Vets and assistants moved with efficient urgency, masks obscuring expressions, gloves snapping into place. The rhythmic clatter of instruments striking against trays echoing in the room. Carter's hands trembled as he helped guide the dog onto the operating table, muscles taut from hours of strain, rain-soaked clothing still clinging uncomfortably to his skin. The dog's body shuddered against him, fur damp, paw twitching involuntarily, every movement a silent cry of pain. Carter's chest ached not only with concern for the physical injury, but with the emotional gravity of helplessness. The stark reality that he could not fix this with effort or devotion alone. He bent close, pressing his forehead to the dog's, whispering stories in a fractured, trembling rhythm. Memories of past patrols, of long hours spent together, of quiet victories and small joys, poured from him in a torrent, as if storytelling could tether life itself. Remember the park after training. Remember that time you caught the scent before I even noticed. You're a fighter, my fighter. The dog's eyes softened fractionally, glimmering with recognition, a fragile thread of courage stitched into the fabric of fear. Carter let a hand linger on the dog's shoulder, feeling the tremor beneath the soaked fur, the pulse of life fragile yet present. The surgeons leaned in, voices clipped but precise, asking questions, gouging injury, discussing anesthetic doses. Carter stepped back slightly, heart hammering, feeling simultaneously helpless and hyper-aware, every sense on high alert. The antiseptic stung his nostrils, the harsh light blinding after hours in rain, dark alleys, and the quiet beeping of monitors began to form a pulse in his mind, synchronized with his own anxiety. He ran his hand over the dog's head one final time before stepping back, watching as the team lifted it. And in that brief moment, time seemed to stretch impossibly long. The dog's whine rose briefly, then lowered as anesthesia took hold, and Carter swallowed hard, feeling a strange mixture of relief and terror. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Carter paced the waiting area, boots squelching slightly against the wet floor as he pressed his palms together, knuckles white. He could hear the faint hum of fluorescent lights, the distant chatter of other staff, and the rhythmic beeping of monitors from inside the operating room. His mind replayed the alley, the rain, the shivering body pressed against him, every detail etched into memory. He closed his eyes, letting a shaky breath escape, fighting the urge to collapse under the weight of helplessness. His uniform was soaked, his body sore, yet none of that mattered. What mattered was the fragile life on the table and the trust he had sworn to uphold. Finally, a soft knock on the door, and a nurse stepped out, removing gloves and mask. Carter's chest tightened, heart skipping as she spoke, voice measured but kind. He's stable. Surgery went well. He's going to need time, but he's going to make it. Carter's knees nearly gave way, and he pressed a hand to the counter for support, swallowing past the lump in his throat. Relief flooded him in a wave so strong it left him trembling. Tears streaked his rain-soaked cheeks, and for the first time in hours, he allowed himself to release the tension that had gripped every muscle. He returned to the operating room, standing near the recovery table, and saw the dog, small and fragile beneath blankets, eyes fluttering as consciousness returned. The first stirrings were tentative, each movement careful, eyes searching for him. Carter leaned close, whispering gently, stroking damp fur, careful not to disturb fragile limbs. You did it, you're okay. You're safe. The dog's tail gave a faint wag, a tiny nudge of recognition, and Carter felt a surge of emotion. Relief, gratitude, a profound understanding of the bond that had carried them through the storm. The world outside, still wet and chaotic, seemed distant, unimportant. In the quiet hum of monitors and distant footsteps, Carter realized that courage, trust, and care had forged a lifeline between them that would endure beyond injury, beyond flater. As the dog slept under careful observation, Carter sat nearby, exhausted but vigilant, reflecting on the fragility and resilience he had witnessed. The weight of responsibility had been immense, yet it had birthed something stronger, a bond tempered in crisis, a trust rebuilt in moments of patience, compassion, and shared courage. He traced the dog's head gently, feeling the rise and fall of breathing, and in the rhythmic, fragile pulse, he sensed the beginning of healing, not just of bone, but of spirit. In the still, antiseptic air, he whispered softly, more to himself than anyone else. We survived the storm together. The dog's eyes flickered open briefly, meeting his, and in that glance, Carter felt a quiet, unspoken affirmation. Resilience had been born, trust had endured, and the night's terror had given way to the first fragile light of hope. Morning arrived like a gentle exhale, soft light filtering through the blinds and cutting golden lines across the antiseptic white of the veterinary unit. The storm from the night before had receded, leaving streets glistening with rain, droplets clinging to windows and reflecting sunlight like scattered jewels. Carter sat quietly beside the recovery table, still in his damp uniform, sleeves rolled up, boots slightly muddy, heart finally slowing after the relentless hours of fear and action. The dog stirred, small shifts first, a tentative stretch of limbs, a lift of the head, then recognition. Eyes locking on Carter's with a gaze so full of trust it almost knocked the breath out of him. He reached out, brushing a wet, damp strand of fur from its muzzle, whispering softly, "You made it, we made it." The tail gave a faint wag, tentative but genuine, and a low, contented whine escaped, as if the dog itself was acknowledging the bond that had carried them through darkness. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and warmth, a stark contrast to the storm-soaked alley and the sharp tang of blood from the night before. Carter ran a hand down the dog's side, feeling the steady, healing pulse beneath fur and fabric, a rhythm that mirrored the easing of tension in his own chest. The dog's breathing was calmer now, each exhale a small victory, a testament to resilience and courage. Outside, sunlight pooled on the wet asphalt, casting long, warm reflections that danced in the windows. The storm had ended, yet its memory lingered in the tremor of limbs, the delicate fragility of trust that had been tested and survived. Carter leaned closer, speaking in low, gentle tones, recounting small fragments of normal life, hoping to reintroduce comfort alongside recovery. Remember the park. Remember how you used to chase that ball until you collapsed in the grass. The dog's eyes flickered with recognition, ears twitching slightly as if absorbing every word, every syllable a reinforcement of safety. Carter could feel the tension, the lingering echoes of pain, easing, replaced by something quieter, steadier, a rhythm born of shared courage and survival. He pressed a kiss to the top of the dog's head, a gesture that carried months of partnership, pride, worry, and relief, a symbol of care both physical and deeply emotional. Outside the window the city had shifted, puddles mirrored clear skies, and birds, tentative at first, began to stir. Carter imagined the alley of last night, the rain, the twisted leg, the whimpers of fear, and felt a deep gratitude for the fragile resilience that had carried them through. The dog stretched, legs stiff but moving carefully, and pressed its head against Carter's arm, seeking warmth, reassurance, and connection. In that moment, he understood the full weight of what had transpired. Trust had been fractured, courage tested, fear endured, yet the bond between them had emerged stronger, tempered by adversity and care. He sat back slightly, letting the dog rest against him, observing the gentle rise and fall of its chest, noting the healing splint, the softening gaze, the subtle wag of the tail. Every detail was a testament to resilience, to courage, to the unspoken dialogue between human and animal. Carter's thoughts wandered to the night outside, the storm, the chaos, the tactile memory of cold rain and slippery pavement, and he realized that those moments, harrowing as they had been, had crystallized something vital: empathy, commitment, and the quiet, unshakable power of trust. When the veterinarian returned, smiling gently, Carter allowed himself a tentative exhale, the first unguarded release of tension in hours. "He's going to be fine," the vet said. "You did everything right." Carter nodded, words catching in his throat, because this was more than rightness. It was love, dedication, presence. The dog's head lifted, ears flicking toward the voice, then settled back against Carter's arm, content secure, alive. He traced a finger along its damp fur, absorbing the warmth, the heartbeat, the quiet miracle of survival. Later, as sunlight poured fully into the room, painting everything in amber hues, Carter finally stood, brushing off damp clothing, surveying the room. The dog rose on wobbly legs, still cautious but determined, tail held high in small, measured sweeps. They shared a glance, a wordless acknowledgement of nights survived, fears endured, trust rebuilt, and a bond deeper than either could fully articulate. Carter stepped back slightly, letting the dog explore the room, watching each careful step, each tentative sniff, each small expression of regained confidence. The storm, both literal and emotional, had passed, and what remained was fragile, luminous, and enduring. As Carter walked toward the door, Glancing back one last time, he caught the sunlight glinting in the dog's eyes, the faint rise and fall of its chest, the tentative wag of its tail. He felt a quiet, profound gratitude for survival, for trust, for courage, for the life that had been preserved not just by skill, but by steadfast presence and unwavering devotion. Outside, the city hummed with the rhythms of everyday life, indifferent yet beautiful, streets glistening from the storm, birds singing, a world renewed. Carter's heart, once taut with fear and urgency, now eased into a steady, contemplative calm. And as he stepped into the morning light, he carried with him the lasting echo of the night's trials, that courage is reciprocal, that trust can survive fracture, and that even in the darkest storms, resilience, care, and love can bring dawn. The dog, now standing with renewed strength, gave a final soft nudge, a whisper of acknowledgement and thanks, and Carter allowed himself a smile, the kind that carried every moment of fear, every beat of hope, every tremor of shared courage. Together, they had weathered the storm, and together, they would continue stronger for it, bound by a trust forged in the darkest hours and illuminated by the gentle, golden light of dawn. The storm had passed, leaving streets glistening in dawn's gentle light. Carter watched the dog stretch, tentative but alive, tail wagging with quiet triumph. Every shiver, every whimper, every heartbeat they had shared felt sacred now, a bond forged in fear, patience, and unwavering trust. The city stirred beyond the windows, indifferent yet beautiful, but inside, a fragile peace settled. Carter knelt, pressing a hand to the dog's head, and whispered, "We made it, together." The dog nudged him in return, eyes reflecting gratitude and courage. In that moment, he understood true bravery was not the absence of fear, but standing unwavering side by side.